Hello and welcome to episode 1 of Shuttlebay 4. In this episode, we'll be talking about becoming a Trekkie, the TOS two-parter, the Menagerie, and we reveal Rachel's dirty secret.
Really wave like this, oh my god. Like,
Yeah, wave.
How
about we introduce ourselves? Just talk about, why we're into Star Trek, how we got into it, what it means to us, and then we can jump into our episode of the week, which is the Menagerie, episodes of the week, part 1 and part 2, and we'll just play it by ear. How does that sound?
That sounds fine, yeah.
That's good too. Nice. Well, I got into Star Trek when I was 4 or something because my mum watched it. It was the original series that was on TV. And she wasn't a Trekkie or anything. She just liked watching it, and I just watched it with her, and I liked it very much. I remember that we came home sometime from shopping or something. And I asked my mum, I was like, "Mum, are you watching Starship tonight?" That's what I call Star Trek. I call it Starship.
That's so cute, though.
I remember that, so I really liked that. And then later, I remember The Next Generation coming on TV at some point, but my mum didn't like that, so we didn't watch that. And then later it was Voyager on TV, and I remember I fell in love with Voyager right away. I loved it so much, and I was at the time about 9, I think, that it was on TV. And I was totally obsessed with it. And when I went to school later, I was bullied in school. So Voyager was then sort of my escape from reality, so it really helped me through life. Sorry, that's going deep, like really quick. No, but Voyager is my favorite Star Trek for that reason.
Yeah.
It's got great sentimental reasons, and so after I was a teenager, I sort of stopped with that. I still liked it, but I didn't really watch it anymore. And then about a year ago, I suddenly decided to give TNG a try. So I started watching TNG, and I absolutely loved it. And now I'm obsessed with lore. And so yeah, I just love it, and I'm trying to catch up on all the other Star Treks as well. So I'm a full-time Trekkie. Yeah.
Full-time Trekkie, I like it, yeah.
Yeah.
Nice. It's funny what you should... Oh, it's not funny talking about, being bullied, because it's not a funny thing. But what I mean is, when I've been at conventions, when you've heard people standing up and talking in panels, a lot of people have said the same sort of thing. I think a lot of people find a lot of solace in Star Trek, and it feels like a safe place. Brush, what about you?
Yeah, well, I got into it when I was young as well. My dad probably watched it on TV, so I would have caught it probably early 80s, I'd say. And it would have been repeats, obviously, of TOS.
Yeah.
And then, how old would I have been? 5 or 6. And then there was obviously a build-up to TNG coming on TV. And that I was really excited by the build-up of it. It was like a brand new Trek. And I'd watched reruns of the old Trek for so long. It was amazing to think like you're going to get a new Trek. A bit like people experienced today when Trek came back almost.
Yeah.
TNG came on, and I would say from the start I loved it. I was young enough still, I would have been about 12, I think. 11, 12 when TNG came out in the UK. So it was perfect timing for me. Really to get to love the characters, and TNG changed it up for me. It was actually immediately slightly different, and for me better, because you had that many more characters involved, and they were all really, really cool characters. And I've always used it. I can't think of any kind of reason why I've used it, but I've always gone to Star Trek as a comfort blanket. I think, like you mentioned, all fans do, because that's what it is to us. It's kind of weirdly as well for me, and I don't know if it's the same for all of us here, but it used to be kind of a Star Trek for me was a solitary thing. It used to just be me, and I'd watch Star Trek.
Yeah.
I didn't have people that I'd go and watch Star Trek with, and I didn't really buy toys and stuff like that like I do now as a silly collector. I'm spending loads of money buying toys that I could have bought years ago for so much cheaper.
Oh, I know.
But that's how it goes. So I've always used it as a comfort blanket and felt like it was family, even though I'm saying I watched it on my own. It never made me feel lonely. It always made me feel actually part of something. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So again, I would say I came to conventions later than I should have in life, because if I had gone years ago, I know I would have enjoyed them. I used to think they were a bit too geeky at the time, and now I'm a full-on geek that goes and cosplay as a giant cat from animated TV series. You know?
Yeah.
I would say I've been a full-time Trekkie since the start. Ever since I saw it, it was kind of just because it was based in space. I think one thing I didn't mention, like when I was a kid, when they used to say, "What do you want for Christmas?" And even as a kid, it was like, "I want a rocket to the moon." I was always on about space and trying to get to space in a rocket. And so to see a group of people in space, for me, was like, wow, this is awesome.
I want this. This is what I want at
yeah,
Christmas.
it's a positive. That's another thing that Star Trek has over nearly everything, is it's always got a positive outlook on humanity. Like, we're going to grow, we're going to get past this awful stage, and it's a nice thought that that is a possibility.
Yeah,
something to strive for, definitely.
No, that's good. That's good. Well, for me, I didn't really get into Star Trek until a bit later, I suppose, because when I was a little kid, I'd never really watched Star Trek. I remember having Star Trek 3, The Search for Spock, on VHS. My mum and dad had some pirate copy. I remember watching that and kind of enjoying it, because I just watched anything sci-fi, but I was really into War of the Worlds and things like that. I used to sneak down in the morning and listen to that when my dad got a CD player. I remember listening to that. I just love it. Star Trek 4, I do remember a lot being on TV. It maybe wasn't on TV a lot, but I do remember watching it. So my main introduction to Star Trek was probably watching Star Trek 4 and just enjoying that just as a sci-fi, light-hearted film. And then when I was a teenager, so this probably would have been about 1994, I reckon. So TNG had been on for a while. I remember watching TNG on TV. I probably caught it by mistake, to be honest. I was probably waiting, to watch The Simpsons or something like that. And after a few episodes, I was absolutely hooked. I was absolutely mad on it. And I think because it was on Sky, so we didn't have Sky, but we had it briefly for a period of time. My dad got conned or whatever by some salesman and ended up having Sky. And it was on Sky. Well, I remember watching it all the time. And then on BBC Two, I think so they were covering different series. I used to watch them both. But luckily for me, it wasn't an entirely solitary thing, because next door but one, my best mate Scott got into Star Trek as well. And we got into it at the same time. I don't even know how, to be honest, but we just got into it at the same time. We were both big sci-fi fans. And
it's probably because it just come out on TV the way you were able to watch it, you know what I mean?
Yeah, maybe so. I think because there's just a big overlap with our lives. Probably just
called your father into on his father as well.
But we watched that, and it was great. So we got to like summer holidays, you're climbing trees and things like that, and we'll be talking about, if you could live on any Enterprise, what Enterprise would it be? The answer is obviously the D, because it was the latest one, and why would you, not want to stay on a ship that's got a holodeck? And it was brilliant. I really got into Star Trek. I loved it. I think QVC used to have a Star Trek special on the last something of every month, and I used to watch that. I used to go upstairs and watch it upstairs, and dream about owning these ceramic plates and all these
tacky things.
tacky merchandise, because I was only like 14, 15, so I couldn't afford these things.
But I fell for all that, because I bought those plates. I had a collection of about 20, don't worry.
Yeah. But so that's how I got into it, and I really got into it in a big way. I used to, when I got a paper round, and I used to earn £18.50 a week, whatever it was, I used to spend all that on Star Trek stuff. I remember getting Star Trek Monthly. I remember being really embarrassed about buying it from the local shop. I remember saying to somebody, I'd be less embarrassed if I were buying Razzle or Reader's Wives.
Yeah.
But I used to buy Star Trek Monthly. And then I remember going to school and talking about Star Trek quite enthusiastically. And people were like, what are you on about? And they really dismissed Star Trek, and they hated it. And I kind of hid it and didn't want to talk about liking Star Trek to anybody. And then it kind of left. Star Trek just kind of left my life. I just stopped watching it for whatever reason. Before this stage, I ought to mention my mate Scott used to buy the Voyager on VHS, and I used to go around to his house and watch it because we watched the Voyager pilot. I remember him getting it. I'm not sure if it was on TV or he bought it on VHS, but we watched it in his room. And the opening, the credit sequence where the nacelles go, and it's what we were. I remember us looking at each other, and we were like. That is the coolest thing we've ever seen. And I used to watch it around at his house. But then Star Trek just left. I didn't watch it for ages. I never finished Deep Space Nine, and I never finished Voyager. And then skip forward quite a few years. So I'm like 14, 15 at this age. So 94, 95. When I was in my early 30s, because I went through divorce and I split up from my wife and everything, I found myself living at my mum and dad's house with my 3 kids, and we used to share a double bed. So it'd be me and 3 kids all sharing this one bed. And I used to go to bed early so that I weren't disturbing them. And I put the TV on, and I thought, in fact, I don't even remember thinking I'm going to watch Deep Space Nine or Voyager and complete it. I think I just needed it. I know it sounds daft, but I just needed it. And so I put it on. And it was like reuniting with an old friend. And honestly, it was all that love I had for it just came back. And
it's funny because whatever you need it to be, isn't it? You know, whatever you need it to be, there's there.
But I do genuinely think that it's had a huge positive impact on my life, and it's affected how I think and how I do things and how I approach life, because there's an ideology within Star Trek, and you said, you know, about it being positive, and it's not just about it being positive either. It's about the fact that, because anything can just be positive, but it challenges stuff. I mean, TOS obviously did it quite famously. You know, you've got people black on one side, white on the other side, and it took quite serious issues and talked about them, and even things like I can never remember the names of episodes. You know, I'm terrible at that. Brush knows it. The Moriarty episode of TNG. I mean, you can have hours of discussions over that. You know, would it have been immoral to switch him off because it became sent? You know, it was just it was quite intelligent. You know, and as a teen, like most teenagers are, you kind of think, I am a very intelligent, very poetic, and thoughtful, and so you know, everybody thinks that, and old teens, I think, feel like nobody understands them and they're out of place. But with Star Trek, you're never out of place, because it's all about inclusivity. It's all about there's a place for everyone. And I do genuinely feel as though it has enhanced who I am. I think I'm a better person. I know it sounds like a ridiculous thing to say. Well, it's not to you two. And if anybody ever watches this video because I like Star Trek, I'm assuming they will buy into that sort of thought, you know, that it has improved me. I feel like I'm a better person because of it, you know. So that's where I came from. And in terms of conventions, I knew they existed, but I never went to one because maybe I thought it's a bit too geeky. I'm not Star Trek enough for it.
Exactly the same. Yeah.
But 2016, I went to my first one with my mate Scott. He's not been to one since. Maybe it was a bit too much for him. I don't know. And I loved it. And I've been to all the UK destination treks or Star Trek since. I met Brush in 2021. You know, obviously I met Rachel before the last convention, but I met you in real life there, and I've made some really good friends, and it's added a huge dimension to my life. I don't really socialize a lot, and it's not that I'm a recluse. I just don't do it a lot. Whereas now I can find a group of people to socialize with. And I was actually taking the mic earlier on. I was chatting to the wife because we went for a walk just before this call, which is why we're a couple of minutes late. And I was on about the convention. I said, it's the only place. I said, you couldn't do it at work. If I was at work in the canteen and I sat next to a couple of people and said, so then, which are your favorite ships that are not the Enterprise or the Defiant? And sit there and have an hour-long conversation. It just wouldn't happen. Whereas at a convention, you could literally sit down with a beer, turn around to somebody, and you will have a huge conversation. And not only that, you've got a lifelong friend. So that was my introduction to Star Trek. And here we are now, all 3 of us. We get together, we talk about it. So it's clearly had, you know, a big influence on us. Apologies if I look red and sweaty, by the way. I'm absolutely roasting in here. I'm sat next to, I've got a PC there, I've got a laptop here, and I've got another laptop down there that's on, and this room is absolutely roasting. Sweating like a pig.
Same, I've turned my fan off especially so I can hear you.
I forgot I've got a fan. I should have put that on. I could open this door, but the cat will bother me then and she'll be jumping all over my keyboards and knocking things off. But there we go.
My keyboards, he got probably 6 keyboards that he needs to use.
I've
4 mouse.
I've got the keyboard on the laptop, and I've got 2 keyboard. And Dan touched me in case in fact, you won't be able to see it anyway because of this
we don't
background.
care, honestly. We don't care.
You don't. Okay. It's on the keyboards. I can't believe he's put. I hope he cuts this out of the recording. This isn't. This isn't interesting. So there we go. We've covered our.
Well, let me go back once more. And you
Go on
can edit or just cut it out. But you went on to inclusivity, which for me, inclusivity, while it's always obviously part of what Star Trek is at its core, I think because I grew up with it, and I started in black and white, and then went to colour, and that's when it shocked me, like how different actually loads of the aspects of it were. But I think because I just grew up with it, it was almost normal to me. So I felt it made me, a better person in the way that I grew up accepting all of it. All the inclusivity to me was actually, well, that's what is normal, rather than it being other people who grew up without it and actually didn't have that aspect of their life because there might have been some thing that wasn't inclusive. Some parents were racist when I was young in the 80s. You had a lot of that where I grew up, type of thing. So yeah, I just think that's how it made me a better person and just made the inclusivity part of it normal life,
Yeah, no, that's a really good point. Actually, if you're growing up with it, it becomes normalized, which is how it should be.
Absolutely,
You know what I mean? It is a very progressive, it's a progressive franchise. I mean, you look at TOS now, and obviously it looks a bit dated. And there's that awful episode where after the transporter incident, where evil Kirk basically tries to raid Rand, and it's an.
Well, there's several episodes in there,
but it's. If you look at it through the lens of the 1960s, it was very progressive. You know what I mean? And I guess we'll touch on some of that when we come to our Menagerie discussion. Should we kick off then? Should we start talking about the Menagerie? Menagerie. Go on, Brush.
Menagerie.
Rachel's too mature for this. She's the youngest one, and she's too mature for it.
She's just trying to give off that persona. Don't be fooled, viewers. Don't be fooled.
Don't be fooled, dear. And she's normally swearing like mad. There's that. I will beep those. I thought you were leaving then. I am not taking this from anyone. We've just been talking about how inclusive it is. Then we start slagging off Rachel. It's made us better people, Star Trek. Made us better people. We're really inclusive. We're really accepting.
Rachel off. We're just telling the viewers to prepare themselves for Rachel.
And Rachel does have a dirty secret as well, which I will reveal at some point during this episode. A dirty secret. Oh man! In fact, you know this dirty. In fact, I think we should just tell everyone now what your dirty secret is.
Yes, what is my dirty secret?
You don't know what it is?
Yeah, we do know what it is, Rachel. You do know what it is.
Brush this twig down.
No, if you go to shuttlebay4.com, what do you read on there?
Rachel's dirty secret is, go on, tell us.
Season 1 and 2 of Picard are better than season 3.
No.
Right, banned.
My ears are bleeding. At Destination Trek, okay, and we'll have to have an episode where we talk about that. At Destination Trek, it's your destination. If you'd have gone into the bar and said out loud, Picard season 1 and 2 is better than Picard season 3, everything would have gone quiet. It would have been like one of those scenes from a cowboy film.
I bet she did, actually. I bet she did, because she loves it.
I'm going to try that next year. I'm going to try that. This is what I think.
And that's fine. That's fine. All opinions are valid.
Even the wrong ones. Actually, if you go on to the, like, what you call it, memes, and it's the Garak one, especially the wrong ones.
Especially, yeah, that's true. Yeah,
especially the wrong ones.
Yeah, we'll have to mock up that. We'll have to find a blank version of that meme.
Rachel, that's your homework.
Oh, actually, how about this as a challenge for the next episode? Each of us has to come up with a Star Trek meme. You know, the standard ones that are always out there, right? We've got each of us.
I like that.
We've got to bring one to the table. I'm going to make a note of it.
Because I haven't got a clue. I'll have a go.
Oh,
but honestly, nice one. I've never made a meme in my life.
Well, I don't think I have. Come on, Brush. If you dig deep, you'll find that sense of humour.
Yeah, no, I don't know if I will.
I'm only joking. Brush has got a great sense of humour, by the way.
Oh yes, put that in brackets.
Great sense of humour. Oh, by the way, I still got my. Oh, it's not that wrist. It's this one. I still got my 3-day pass band on, by the way.
God,
Which
honestly.
maybe
Oh my
makes.
God, really?
I mean, that I don't say like I'm some like dirty scrubber.
Well,
I do shower at least once a fortnight, but this
you show
this
them
is it is plastic. No, I shower, very regularly, and I take my hygiene very seriously. But this is plastic. It's not like it's some like flimsy paper thing. It is a plastic thing.
Yeah,
I'm going to
the
see how
last
long
destination, the one I met him in, he had that on for weeks as well.
I'm going to see if I can use it next year.
On Sunday evening.
You what?
I took it off on Sunday evening.
Did
I was
you?
like, right, the con is over. I'm taking this thing off.
I'm going to try and get into next year's with this, but watch them be green. Like, oh, it's green this year. Right, so I forgot what we're talking about. Yeah, so we've already got a task for next week, which is the meme off.
Shit, man.
We're gonna have a meme off.
Do you know what as well? That was me and my stupid big mouth again, wasn't it?
There you go.
It's always me and my stupid big mouth against myself in trouble.
You've just said that you don't want to do this. You're not very good at memes, but you are the one that came up with that one.
Mm-hmm.
Well,
You could use that. If you've run out of ideas, just use that one. It is a good idea.
Yes, that is the one you came up with, so you can make that one.
Is my video playing up?
No.
It was for like 10 minutes, but now you're...
For 10 minutes?
10 minutes?
10 minutes.
Guys, guess what day it is today?
What day? Let me have a go. I did say, is it your birthday?
What day is it?
No, it's not. No.
It's the 7th of the 9th.
Yes, so what makes that? It's 7 of 90.
No! Epic.
Amazing.
Okay.
So, are we going to get into the Menagerie now?
So what we need is a proper oh my sound like bite.
In fact, I'm going to impress you, Brush, because
Go on, you
there's going to be an oh my right now. Ready?
Oh my.
I love it.
That's
was
not what
amazing.
I meant. I'll stick one in post. I'll just edit one in.
Oh my!
Yes. So,
Well, there's already an oh my there then, because you mentioned there's like a two-part. It's the only two-parter in the TOS.
right. Do you want to go first then, Brush? Talk about the Menagerie.
I picked it as well so that Rachel could get up to speed, because some of the jokes we were making at the time, you weren't getting with you, Rachel. We need is the beep beep chair, for instance. Yeah. And so we just thought as well, it was a really good episode because it's got so much context that leads into future Star Trek.
Yeah.
And that really helped as well. So I loved it. I have always liked this episode, if I'm honest. It's one of the better, in even the individual episodes, it doesn't really drop. Like some two-parters can really drop in the second episode. But I think this one is really, really, both episodes are some of the best of TOS as a whole. I really like that Spock is, being a little bit naughty, which is very unusual for his character. And this is still quite early on in the series. This was like series 1, episode 11 and 12, actually. I did think, though, because obviously we're watching it, it's made in the 60s. We were watching it, and Pike is sitting in that chair with like a button of him, and he could say yes or no. Whereas we live in today, and for a long time, we've had much better technology than that available for people in that situation, you know what I mean? So I guess it's hard if you're going to watch TOS now. That's what I agree. If you have ever watched anything after TOS to get into Star Trek, I agree TOS can be a struggle because it's like, come on, that's very backwards compared to what we think.
Yeah.
There was something really early on. It was the Commodore. He was walking Kirk and Spock and Dr. McCoy to the Captain Pike's room, and he said to Kirk, "Have you ever met Captain Pike before?" And Kirk said something like, "Oh yes, I met him when he was Fleet Admiral." And I'm like, that's just been in Strange New Worlds, I'm sure. There's an episode where Pike is upgraded to Fleet Admiral, isn't he? And Kirk is in that episode, and so I thought that was a really clever tie-in. I'm sure I'm right. I'd have to really double check and go back and watch that Strange New World episode, but I think they've tied that in to like the future Kirk, what's going on with Pike, and I think that's really clever if that's right. And again, forgot how much they used of the cage. So the cage was like the original pilot that flopped. I've always really liked it. Because I think Captain Pike in that was really good. Jeffrey Hunter, I thought was like a really, really good captain. And I forgot how much of they totally reused the cage in it. Like it almost was a whole episode, wasn't it? Between the two episodes, it was like a whole episode was made just of that. And that was like a money-saving thing, I'm sure.
Yeah, it was, yeah.
It always was at the time.
I ought to mention at this stage that when we're looking at episodes, normally Brush will point out anybody that was in Murder, She Wrote.
Okay, so there's a segment that I may as well do now called Who Appeared in Murder, She Wrote?
Really?
We call it MSW. Yeah. So, who appeared on MSW? There's 2 people. I was so pleased.
Go on.
So, Susan Oliver, who was in The Cage, and obviously then in this one because of it, she played Vina.
Yeah.
You know, the main woman, yeah. And then we've also got Julie Parrish, and she played Miss Piper. Remember her? She was in the beginning when they were on the planet in the beginning, and she just looked like she was on drugs. She was quite a strange woman in the red.
The red hair with the black hair. Yeah.
Now you can play the Murder, She Wrote music if you could edit that in, please.
I should type on my keyboard like Jessica Fletcher.
That's everything except oh my's, but we'll do them because other people might have them as they talk.
Oh my.
I kind of mentioned about they use a lot of the cage in it, and it was a cost-saving exercise. It was one of those, normally where you stitch together. You have one of those
show, basically. Almost,
like a clip show, yeah. But it was done brilliantly, and although it was to save money, oddly, you've ended up with a really premium episode because the cage was clearly an expensive episode to make. And there's so much of it in there, and it looks good. It is a real premium episode. One thing I've noted here, which isn't specific to the Menagerie, but seeing as it's the first time we've really talked about TOS, the updated effects, which I really like on TOS. They've updated a lot of the visual effects because they haven't done it in a way that's really obvious, that's jarring. It's just they're just tickled them a bit, really. They've just improved the odd thing, added a planet or made the Enterprise have less of the masking around it as it's going over a planet, that sort of things. And you notice that straight away because you've got that really nice purple sky at the beginning of this episode.
That's because I read that was like a painting. So what they did was they just redid the background painting that it was going to be here, but then also added the people in it. Because there was no people originally, it was just the matte painting in the background. So the people they added as well, because it was just, we need them right now. It was the production staff, they just put in uniforms, I think.
Right,
so
okay.
Just,
No, usually it's matte paintings when they're doing, we ought to actually maybe discuss the special effects another day because there are some amazing matte paintings in Star Trek, and I'm not sure if they've been on exhibition. I would love to see them, but we'll maybe discuss that another time because it is something.
I wonder as well, because there were so many of them, you know what I mean? I wonder if they had to get rid of a lot of them because of storage and stuff. I bet like not all of them are available, which is a shame.
Yeah, they normally are on glass because normally it is literally glass that's put in front of the camera and such like. I'm assuming if you've got a load of those for various planets and things, they do take up a lot of space. And it's not only to Star Trek either. You've got films and other TV. You got so many of them being created. Oh yeah, a comment that I've made is that I know when they redid the effects in Star Trek and added these visual effects, a lot of people were resistant to it. A lot of people were quite purists, and they were saying, "Look, you can't update the special effects in Star Trek. It's not the Star Trek we fell in love with." But I do think it makes it more accessible for a lot of newer viewers, a lot of younger viewers who are just used to watching more modern TV, and it just makes it less jarring when you watch TOS. And if it gets people into it, and it doesn't, I think, negatively impact it in any way, I think it's been really, really well done. Speaking of old-fashioned looking TV, within a few seconds, and this is that character you're on about, the lady in the red dress and the black hair. I forgot her name already, but she's called
Miss Piper.
Miss Piper. You've got the soft focus on her, which was a throwback from the old, I think, 30s and 40s Hollywood. I mean, they're literally, by the way, used to smear like Vaseline over the lens, to And it was like an Instagram filter, just to smooth skin and
This is so cool, because as I was watching the episode, I was noticing that, and I was wondering how were they able to do that, because you see that so much in old films and all that, and you don't see that these days. So I was like, what's the difference? How did they do that? So that's how they did that. They smeared Vaseline over the lens.
There may have been other modifiers that were put on lenses, but it was literally a case of smearing, Vaseline on lenses. It's meant to not reveal wrinkles and things like that. And it just became kind of like visual cinematic language of beauty. Oh, in that very same scene, by the way, when you have the sort of focus on her, the camera then switches to Shatner, and he's got so much makeup on his face. Again, that's just part of the way things are filmed then. One thing that you see a lot in Star Trek, and you see a hell of a lot in this, and this is, my notes are kind of in chronological order. So immediately after that scene, you've got the scene with the Commodore when they're in the office, and you've got this bright purple background, and you see that all the time in Star Trek. Often it's green or red. In this case, it's purple. It's a really bright purple background, and I think that's one of the things that dates TOS, because you don't really see it these days. Now, the reason for that was because having that bright background, it created a bit of depth. Also, it's the 60s. This is the happening decade where you've got hippie, trippy, psychedelia. So you've got these bright colours. And I think also it was genuinely seen as a futuristic thing, because it doesn't look...
At the time, it totally futuristic.
Yeah, it looked quite futuristic. And to be honest, there is a particular scene...
And now futuristic to us is just like white.
White, exactly, yeah. But that scene where they're in the office, there you've got the gold command tops against that purple. It looks stunning. It's really quite beautiful. But it really dates it, because you can tell everything's a set. Whenever they land on a planet, it's really obviously a set. You can see the painted background or whatever. In fact, often it's not a painted background, it's just a background with lights on it, so it's a different color. And if there is painting on it, it's really obvious it's painting, because there's no parallax, which means that as the camera moves left or right, everything kind of remains in the same plane. You don't get the things further away moving slower than the things closer and all that. And it's just really obviously filmed on sets. Any internal sets, like in the office, you can see they're all boxed in. There's hardly any room. You've got like maybe 4 or 5 people, and they're all stood like within each other's personal space. It just looks a bit odd. Now, these are all things when I was a kid watching it, I could tell it looked old-fashioned. There was something I couldn't quite... I couldn't quite tell why, but it's only now that I kind of analyze it, I can see what it is that looks old-fashioned compared to now. And one thing that really gives away the studio effect is the lighting. There's one particular scene where I think it's Kirk is in a room, and he's in a room on his own, and as he walks, he's got like 4 really harsh shadows being cast everywhere. And if that was me, I'd probably have a migraine with all those bright lights on me. Anyway. That's not really me talking about the Menagerie. That's more me talking about TOS and 1960s TV series. Hearing the Commodore talk about Pike, when he's outside his room and he's like, before we go in, chaps, prepare yourself, because Pike's in a bad way, right? When you actually see Pike, now I've seen the Menagerie before, and it's like, oh yeah, he's quite badly burnt and he's in his beep beep chair. But now, because I feel like I know Pike, and I love Pike from his stint in Discovery and from Strange New Worlds, did you find it more shocking when you saw him? It was quite heartbreaking.
I am going to be myself. My name's Brush. Get used to it. But actually, funnily, I was the exact opposite. But because I've seen it several times, and you mentioned Strange New Worlds and Discovery, he's in that. You've actually seen his face melt. Yeah. So I was actually the opposite to you. Sorry, being heartless.
That's I just found it quite sure. Now that I know, I don't see Pike as this guy in his beep beep chair anymore. I see Pike as this really quite stoic captain. And when we've talked about Pike in the past, I do love Pike. It's one of my favourites. And
I love Pike, yeah. Because I know his end point. I've always seen him as that character. It's like interesting in what he is beforehand. I'm really like Pike and what he is, but it's interesting because also he's always on his mind, which he plays out, I think, in it as well. So
when you watch Pike, you're thinking, he's ended up in that beep beep chair.
They've really emphasised that this is his end game, you know what I mean? Yeah. So I kind of always see that in him, yeah.
Maybe I'm just in denial. I don't, I'm like, no, not Pike. They'll find a way. Oh, yeah, and when there's a scene when Spock talks to Pike, which again added more, it felt more poignant to me after watching Strange New Worlds. But if you look closely, there's a little tear running down Pike's cheek. I found that quite a moving scene. Imagine if you've never watched a Menagerie before. You've got Spock, like you said, he's completely acting out of character. and is acting, almost in a. It's been very devious. It's very out of character for Spock.
Yeah.
And I found it really interesting because it's, especially if you've never seen it before, but what is he up to? What is he up to? And there is that genuine sense of intrigue. There's a lot of very aggressive defense of Spock in this episode by Kirk and McCoy. And it's particularly nice to hear McCoy do it because obviously McCoy and Kirk have this, like weird relationship where they're clearly friends, but they wind each other up. And I thought it was quite nice to hear basically McCoy defend Spock massively. And Kirk was doing it constantly as well, because you always hear about the three of them are good friends in the series. I mean, in universe, they become like this little triumvirate of friends. And I think this episode really cements that. You really do.
He's still talking.
I've got
Just my back hurts.
I've got maybe 20 more minutes left, and that's it. I've got a comment here that Shatner's hair looks great. Honestly, Shatner's hair looks amazing this. I don't know what they did with his wig, but it did look the best I think it's ever looked. There is a scene in it where, they're wearing the dress uniforms in the courtroom, and they've got like these little triangle things. And it looks like a toddler's glued them on. It looks really bad. Honestly, it looks like something that your kids have done. When when you make a Mother's Day card at school and you glue stuff onto a piece of paper. I've put as well that Pike. It feels like Pike. It feels like the Pike that we know, and I think Jeffrey Hunter was a really, really good Pike. Well, have I got any more notes? Rachel's like, please no. That's it. I'm done. I promise. That's the end of my notes. Wake up, Rachel.
It's not Rachel. Do you know how nice Dan is? He's probably still got loads of notes left, and he's just going, "Oh no, I finished now.
When this call finishes, I'm going to sit in a dark room on my own. And I'm just going to read them out and pretend that people are listening. And when I've finished, I'm going to give myself a little pat on the back, and I'm going to go, "Well done, Dan. Well done, Dan. That was fascinating."
No, but
Come on, Rachel. This is your first time watching the Menagerie. In fact, maybe it isn't, because maybe the last time you watched it, you were 4 years old. Did it bring back any memories?
Well, I don't know. I don't remember what I've watched as a child. I just remember that I liked it, and I asked my mum if we could watch Starship. But I don't remember the episodes. But yeah, anyway, so my notes are a lot less than what you just did, Dan. But
thanks for that, isn't it?
So my first reaction was like, "Oh my God, Pike's eyes! This is beautiful blue eyes! Oh my God!"
Jeffrey Hunter, he was gorgeous.
Yeah, what I liked about Spock was, I think we've spoken about this before, that you guys were telling me that Spock was more human, like in the past or something, and became more Vulcan later, as it was sort of a topic of discussion while we were watching Strange New Worlds at some point. But anyway, so I remembered that we were talking about that, and I noticed that every time we saw that video evidence of the past Spock, that he was just so much more human, basically. He was just so animated, and he was, at one time when they were beaming down to the planet, and you had these blue leaves that were making this humming sound. And he actually smiled at us.
Yeah. Oh, leaves!
Yeah. So oh my God. And then whenever they went back to present time Spock, basically with Kirk, then he was like much more emotionless. And what I thought, those aliens that were communicating telepathically, I don't remember their names, but some of them had these veins on their heads.
Actually, that's amazing makeup as well for the time. You know what I mean?
Yes, definitely.
Yeah.
So even though it's dated, I did enjoy watching it. What I like about this episode as well is that it's at the start you don't know what's going on. So it's like something happened with Spock, is doing something out of character. You're just like, why is he doing this? What's happening? And that just keeps you watching. I just love when episodes are like that, where you don't know what's happening at the start, and you want to find out. You want to find out so much that
I felt like that throughout the entire of Picard season 1 and 2.
Oh,
I loved it at the very last part, that Davros Pike is basically going back to the planet, and he gets a second chance.
it is a lovely ending for him, yeah.
I think that's about what I've got.
Have you not got any more notes?
So yeah, I'm sorry. It's
No, I was joking because
compared to you.
I
So.
I actually, one thing that I did have in my notes, but I must have skipped it when I was looking through, is the solution makeup. I think was brilliant. I think they looked absolutely superb.
Well, yeah, for the time especially, when you think that was so long ago.
And I think they look better than when they redid them.
Yeah, I do. Yeah.
It was episode Discovery, I think, weren't it?
Yes, it was. Yeah, with
it wasn't in Strange Worlds. It was Discovery.
Planet, yeah, season 2.
Yeah, but do you feel, Rachel, that it's quite an important two-parter to watch, given what's happening with the current new age of Trek, with Pike and everything, and also with Discovery? She had that great brush. I'm sure you felt the same in Discovery. You had that, previously on Star Trek, and it showed you some of those scenes. I remember thinking that is brilliant. I love the way. You get those people online who are like, oh yeah, Discovery and Strange New Worlds, it's all a different timeline. It's not a real prime timeline, when it is, and it kind of shut them up. Oh, by the way, my missus ages ago makes me take these omega-3 like cod liver oil tablet things, and whilst you were talking, Rachel, I had it in my hand and I squeezed it and it's burst. There's cod liver oil stuff everywhere. It's all over my laptop, it's all over me. So apologies if I looked a bit distracted for a minute. That's all it was.
We've done our episode review, so I've got a couple of oh my's that didn't come up.
Oh my!
Editing oh my.
Insert
Rachel's
oh my here.
Rachel's
oh my.
Anyway, shut up. Oh my.
Oh my.
Jinx.
Also, this is the only, it's like not mega interesting. It's the best I could come up with. The only episode, but of any series whatsoever, that uses, do you know how they use the captain's log as the introduction to the second episode?
Yeah.
And it was actually Kirk's captain log was explained in the previous episode, but they've never done that since. It was the first, I think it was the first episode to win a Hugo Award for best dramatic presentation. I think TOS in total won 4, but this episode was early in season 1, so that's a standout. And this, I think a lot of people know this, Rachel might know, but the Telosians, so all the actors that played the main Telosians were all women.
Oh wow!
They were all female actors that played those. Whereas, and that's it. Oh my!
Oh my!
Oh my!
Insert oh my here.
Oh my!
I will do. Hello. Can you see that?
What? I can see you. That's all I can see. Go no! Oh no!
Can you not see us all sat on?
No, I can't see nothing. Like
concrete bench. Let's have a look. People watching, if anybody ever does watch this, they'll be like, "What the hell are these people doing?"
Just shut up anyway.
Oh, I can say.
So actually, when you were telling us about your notes, Dan, you went into something, and I did lose a bit of interest. I gotta admit, because you were talking about like the production. Oh, there we are. We're talking about the production. Do I have to look that way? Yeah.
Where's
we were talking
my
about
dinner?
We were talking about the production of the lighting or something, and you used the term parallax.
But
as soon as you said it, I don't know, Rachel, I don't know if you thought the same, but as soon as you said the word parallax, I wanted me and Rachel to look at each other and say, "What particles?"
All right, are you ready? I'm going to say parallax.
Yeah. But we don't
parallax.
Want to chat like this. No.
What particles?
Okay. Wait a minute.
Parallax.
What particles?
Come on, bro.
Absolutely seamless.
It's all your
parallax.
So everything is your fault.
More particles! Rachel, you're not listening!
No, it's too late now.
Right, I don't like sitting behind the desk. I do that all day. Please switch that off.
Right, so what have we done then? We've talked about our fandom. We've talked about Menagerie. We've already set ourselves a task for next week, which is
parallax once more.
Yeah.
Oh, we have to watch an episode for next week, right?
Parallax.
Pick one.
What particles? What? We're both supposed to say it.
I wasn't suggesting we watch Parallax, as we've recently watched that.
What particles? Rachel, you missed it.
20 years later.
Parallax.
What particles?
Let's stop doing that now. It's less special if we do it all the time. It needs to be one of those things you do, just on birthdays and anniversaries.
Oh,
Anyway,
Rachel,
who
have you
picked
got
the next
anything to
episode?
show and tell?
Do you guys have anything? Okay, well, what I thought, because I thought it would be nice to do either something, your latest purchase or something you've made, or something you really, really like, your favorite item or something. So I just, what I chose for tonight is just, I just basically, a destination trek. How long was it ago? 2 weeks, 3 weeks now. So that's my latest purchase. I bought a data plate.
Woo!
Oh, yeah.
And Captain Janeway.
Oh, I got a badge.
Badge.
Wait there. I got a badge as well. Wait there. I'll show you mine because mine's really cool.
Yay. So I totally do not collect the plates, but this one was only 10 quid, and I think
Yeah, you don't collect
I
the
think
plates
that's
until you see Law, and then until you see Data dressed up as Sherlock Holmes, and then until you see... I bet you'll have a collection. I don't know if he's gone to get this, so I'm going to show you this before he does, maybe. Can you see it? It's gone.
I see Gorn. Yeah. What is
Is
that? A sticker?
It's like a little magnet.
Oh,
Is it
right,
going with the wind?
No, I don't know what you
Oh,
mean.
is there an actual thing?
Thanks, Rachel, for laughing at that. I don't think you deserved it, to be honest.
Because nobody laughed. I was like,
There's mine there. Can you see my badge?
Oh, yeah.
Oh, yes. Check that bit of
That is-
merchandise out.
That is cool, actually. I like that one.
that
It
is
is very
very
cool.
cool. Yeah.
That's very... Well, I can't quite figure this out because if I move left, that moves right, and it really freaks me out.
Can you see Kirk?
I can see Kirk, yeah.
Cool.
That looks like a Strange New Worlds Kirk, that, doesn't it?
Oh, look at that.
Communicator.
Yeah.
The-
Is that the Bluetooth
It's
one?
running out of batteries. Is it the Bluetooth one? No, it's fucking nice. The cheapest plastic one. And it's mini as well. It looks big because I'm putting it really forward, but it's tiny.
All right. It looks mini because you're giant, because you're massive. You're such a big man.
Yeah, I've got giant hands. That's why my penis looks small as well.
Oh yeah, so we decided on an episode for next week. I know what it's not going to be though. Parallax.
What particles?
Honestly, Bruce, I am not.
That was perfect, right?
Is it not Dan's turn to choose an episode?
I chose Parallax.
Nth degree. The nth
What
degree.
particles?
Can I just say, right, that when I did choose that episode, I'm not going to say the name, I actually picked the wrong episode. It wasn't the episode I was wanting
Yeah,
to
you
watch.
did. So it is your
Yeah, so
turn.
it's your turn.
All right, in
Dan.
that case then, I'm going to pick, and you'll be pleased to hear this, Rachel, because it's a Voyager episode. Drive.
Drive, season 7, episode. I'm going
4.
to guess. Oh, God, let me guess.
It might not, but I just say I'm just saying numbers. Well, according to Wikipedia, it is season 7, episode 3.
Oh, nobody wins.
I was closest. I said 4.
No, we don't go by closest.
What do I get?
Okay, Dad wins. He was closest.
Yeah, that wins. I get, and do you know what I get? Do you know what my prize is? I get to read the rest of my notes.
This way.
Oh, that's that way to me.
Hey, am I going in the right direction, or is it the wrong direction?
No, that's the wrong direction. No,
Oh,
that way.
right.
Is
That way. Other
I
way.
need to go this way.
Yeah, 2 of them, and then fling yourself the other way. You ready?
1, 2, 3.
Locking phasers on target.
They're locking phasers. Ray shields.
Fire!
Nobody wants to see this. Right, we are going now.
Say it once more, Dan. Say it once more.
Parallax.
What? Oh, you just went too long.